Love, light, and blessings. Shamanic Awak Priestess here. I made sure I put my phone on Do Not Disturb because every time, well, not every single time, but a lot of times when I'm recording videos, people decide to call me. I'm just making sure my volume isn't too loud so it doesn't, like, I don't know, the sound doesn't sound funky. But if you hear background noise, it's my turtle tank. I have to like clean out her tank. Her filter's like struggling over there. So when I finish my day shift, I'm going to go and clean out her tank. And then after that, eat lunch. Or maybe eat before I do that because I don't care how clean you are. Just turtles, it can just get dirty quick. So no matter what kind of filter. But enough about the turtle. Much love, much light, much blessings. Hello, hello, hello. I wanted to do a spirit chat with you guys. Basically, because there's like this trend that I'm noticing, not just on YouTube, in the world outside of YouTube, right? So, I am someone who, grew up around Santeria, voodoo, brujeria, hoodoo, that kind of situation. Espiritismo and things of that nature. So a lot of ATRs and, Caribbean spirituality and things of that nature. As I've said many, many times, I can trace back my great-great-grandmother, great-grandmother, grandmother, my mom, so on and so forth. And beyond that as well. And, they were all working spiritual people. So, they had clients. Back in the days, it was, in person and things of that nature. And I've always said, I am both a spiritual person, but I am also a logical person. And I learned that from my elders. And I'm very grateful that I learned that from my elders. They would help you on a spiritual sense, but they also believed in helping yourself and doing the everyday mundane things. Like if you're doing, a job spell, just doing a money spell to get a job while you're not actually actively seeking out employment and asserting yourself and not taking the necessary actions to co-create your reality and the things that you want in your life. If you're doing a love spell to get an ex back, but you're not willing to work on the things that separated you guys in the first place, so working on yourself, not dating other people, not having sex with other people because you're the one trying to get the ex back, your work is not going to work because the spirits are going to be like, yeah, you want to get this person back so fast. Meanwhile, you're misleading somebody else, dating somebody else, giving somebody else false hopes. But yet you think, you want to get back with your ex. Like, that makes no sense. Make it make sense. Or you want to bring somebody back into your life just so that you can mistreat them. You're not willing to work on the issues that caused the separation in the first place. And if it's the other person that had the issues, are you willing to deal with a person that treats you a certain type of way? Because sometimes it might be as simple as you might have to accept this person with their faults. So, it's just a lot of stuff. So I grew up around, yes, workings. That's why I like to say workings, but a lot of people say spells, so I just say spell work. It's about work. You have to work it in the real world and in the world of the spirits. The spirits have to see that you really want these things. I also believe that when it comes to physical health, I went out because my mom never used to explain things to me spiritually, right? I would grow up seeing people go in trance, speaking tongues, thrashing on the floor. I didn't know at that time they were being possessed by Dambalawedo and things like that. But when you're a child, you're scared. Like, what are these people doing? I would see my mom exorcise demons when she would have, rituals and things like that. It would be like people from the community, like the Latino, Black community, coming to our house dressed in white. Especially what happened a lot around like birthdays or like feast days for the spirits. And these things will last until like the next day. A lot of times some people will actually stay over our house, because it was like her spiritual community. My mother ran her own, Santeria house, things of that nature. My grandmother ran her own voodoo house, So, so I grew up around that. And then when she, wanted to elevate herself into espiritismo and things like that, I, grew up around her godfather doing things and cleansings and them bringing people and doing misa, and things of that nature. There will be people that will come to them and they were physically sick, and they would do a healing, right? Like they would do things like spiritual operations and things like that, basically taking out the spiritual causes that are causing illness. With that being said, you had the elders that trained me and myself tell that same person, now we cured the spiritual aspects of the illness, right? But it's about mind, body, and soul. You still have to go to your doctor. You still have to take certain medications until the doctor says, okay, such and such illness is gone now. You don't need that medicine, because you want to have that medical backup, okay, when the spirits heal you from some type of sickness. It goes hand in hand. That is like shamanism, something I grew up around when it comes to my Taino ancestors, okay, and my American Indian ancestors, right? I grew up around that. I initiated into, healings and things like that, right? So, basically, I had situations, I made a video about it, how the voodoo spirits and the ancestors, literally my son, before COVID happened, okay? So before lockdown in 2019, about a year before that, my son had got real sick, and I made a video about this. And basically, he wasn't like wheezing or coughing, like it just was regular asthma, and he gets seasonal allergies. So it wasn't something that I was like, oh my goodness, he's so sick, So I sent him to school. He collapsed in school. Long story short, he got rushed by ambulance. And even when he was in the ER, because he was talking and everything, they didn't know how severely sick he is. My son's very autistic, so he processes things differently, And so just because he's not reacting how they think he should react, they had him in like the emergency room, but it was more like the practitioners. When they actually saw his levels, how low his oxygen was, and actually took an x-ray of his lungs, and that the oxygen they were giving him wasn't enough, he got hospitalized for a while, and we almost lost him. And I remember having a dream, the spirits telling me that I had to do sacrifice before he got sick, like before I knew he was sick. And I was like, why do we have to do sacrifice for? Because that's something that I rarely do. And FYI, that should only be done by somebody who's initiated. Moving on. So I was like, I don't know. So long story short, I had my house come. We did rituals and everything. And about 3 days into him being hospitalized, meanwhile, his lung, like one of his lungs was fully collapsed, and the other one was like very low percentage of even functioning. Okay, my son was on 24 hours like oxygen, IV, like it was really bad. And the doctor was like, do you believe in miracles? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, because we didn't think he was gonna make it, but like literally his lungs are literally functioning. And then like when he got out of the hospital, I said the story, the doctor was like, his lungs are like 90% capacitated, like his deflated lung is like actually inflating, like it's healing, like whatever you're praying to, whatever you're doing, if you believe in God, keep doing that, because it's like basically a doctor's telling me that he doesn't even know how medically my son was able to recover so quickly. He had no explanation, like there was no scientific explanation how this very, very sick child made it, and because they said he had like double pneumonia and so on and so forth. And that's the thing. The spirits did heal my son. I did do the ritual like they said. I made the voodoo doll, because voodoo dolls are used for healing, right? The puppet. I did the sacrifice. I did all the things. But at the same time, in no time did I ever just do the ritual and not take my son to the doctor, if that makes sense. I let the doctors do what the doctors did, but I amplified whatever they were doing with the spirits. It's about the logical, physical world. That's the essence of magic, and the spiritual aspects of things. It is not just lighting a candle, making a puppet, walking away, and your life is going to be perfect. You have to do the work. It's why it's really called workings. But because of all this new agey stuff, whatever, most people say spells, right? Harry Potter, the craft, all the things they show you on TV. So just so people can understand what I'm doing, I'll say a ritual or I say spell work, because it makes the client or someone who's coming for my help to understand what I'm doing, because that's like the modern language. Like that's how people see it now. That's how people talk about it. That's the language around it. But in reality, you're actually doing un trabajo, a working, you know? And I grew up with that. Then you had your charlatans and scammers that would literally tell you, don't go to the doctor, you know, give me X amount of money and I will heal you. There's a difference when you live in rural areas. Like we're from, so I grew up around Puerto Rican culture, Haitian culture, Caribbean culture, okay? Because I have my mother's biological father's from Haiti. Her mother was born in Puerto Rico, okay? And she was a mixed race woman, you know, rest in peace. Both of indigenous and African descent. And she looked like, if you go to the South, very Creole. Where she had black features, but she had like yellow, you know, beautiful yellow skin, so on and so forth. My mother, beautiful dark skin like her dad, you know, and things of that nature. But anyways, moving on to what I was saying. So, you know, basically, they raised my mom in the same way, like do the mundane thing, because you have people, and not all of them are scammers, that genuinely believe that just lighting a candle is going to cure all illnesses. They don't want to do the medicinal part. And yes, the medical field, when you are, especially I'm going to speak now to my brown and black people of color, indigenous people, they did a lot of gynecology was done on enslaved in Native American and black women, people of color. We were used as experiments, okay? Even as recently as the 70s, and it's still going on today. Do you know how many people, black and brown women that I've talked to, they had this thing called La Operación in Puerto Rico, but that also was done here for population control, where they were literally giving women of color, because they wanted to reduce our numbers, right? To keep us in the minorities, right? And literally, right, make us have hysterectomies when there was other less invasive treatments for those conditions. So I understand when a person of color, an indigenous, black, brown, and indigenous people of color, okay, are hesitant at times to trust in the medical field, because gynecology, Planned Parenthood, a lot of these places, the father of gynecology literally did experiments on human beings, okay, on cis women, all right, for the sake of experimenting so they can then do it for the European women, right? So they literally did things without anesthesia and all the things. You know, they did trials in the South, you know, on brown and black bodies, all right, indigenous bodies, to experiment things. Then they would let the European counterparts partake in them after they make sure that, you know, they can do that, okay? And so there is a hesitancy. There are people that are very hesitant, you know, and I make space for that. I am fully vaccinated, but I understand someone that may come to me to see what the spirits have to say, or just for my personal opinion, or I'm afraid of taking the vaccine because you know our history, sis. I understand that. I completely understand that, because that is not politics, and I'm getting tired of everybody lumping people that are unvaccinated with Trump or a certain political party. There are plenty of people that I know, right, that have nothing to do with Donald Trump, the former president, has nothing to do with a political party. They're genuinely afraid because they don't trust the medical community. It is a new vaccine, so I understand that, right? And I feel like sometimes there's a lack of empathy. It's that whole divide and conquer. I understand why people from a marginalized community are hesitant about certain things with medicine. because of our history. I am happy to say that the numbers within my community are rising. More and more people are getting vaccinated. Okay. You saw the disparity in the way when COVID was full blown before the vaccinations. A lot of service workers, which are brown and black people mostly, right, within our communities, right, were dying in huge numbers, okay, because of the lack of medical attention, people not being able to take time off work and or because they were sick, but they have to make rent. They're living paycheck to paycheck, right? Barely getting paid a livable wage. And so they would go to work sick and it was spread. It's so complicated. The issue of people being unvaccinated is so complicated. It is so, I talk to people every single day, and there are people that I talk to and they'll get vaccinated. I'm happy for them. And there's people that choose not to. And we have to respect that, right? I feel like we need to show more empathy. The only people I don't show empathy to are people literally who are just making this about politics, people who are literally being violent, ripping off masks from people, going to stores and ripping off masks and being violent. And I don't like that. My body, my choice, and making it more political. I don't like that. But if it's someone who's generally just afraid, I try to give them resources. I pray for them. I tell them my opinion if they ask me for it. And then I let that person do their own research, make their own, informed decision. But you have other people that are being misled by spiritualists that are like, if you get the vaccine, it's going to like lower your vibrations and you're not going to be able to connect and all this stuff. And I have a problem with that. I have a problem when someone who is spiritual goes and tell somebody, oh, don't get chemotherapy. There are crystals that are going to heal you from your cancer. Balance, if you have throat cancer, balance your throat chakra and your cancer will go away. That's so irresponsible. I equivalent people like that to televangelists that you see on TV that scam people out of their money and are literally living millionaires on their personal jets, paying people to pretend they got healed by them. And people literally dying because they're not seeking medical attention because they're believing this guru or this televangelist person who is saying like, you're healed. And yes, that's irresponsible. Anytime I've ever done any type of healing for my family, friends, whatever, I always tell people, go to the doctor too. I always tell people, like, people have asked me to do healings for them when they've had anxieties or some type of mental illness or something like that. I will light a candle for that. I will light a candle to certain spirits that deal with those situations. But I have never told somebody, stop seeing a therapist, don't see a psychiatrist, don't take your medications. I don't do that. I always say, ask your doctor and see what you and your doctors, but I'm going to help you on the spiritual end. Is why I always say, and I'm always very careful how I word things, and I'll say, yes, I am a spiritual healer. I am not a doctor. I do believe in medicine, but I also believe like vetting. I have learned to be more of an advocate for myself. Like, I've done readings for people where they're like, yeah, the doctor's saying this, that, and the other. And they wanted to like take this person all insides out. And I said, even though I feel like, that's going to work, being that you haven't had children, I actually feel there's a female doctor that's coming through, like, in the reading. And I feel like they're going to give you a better second opinion. Get a second opinion. That's what my spirits are saying before you make that decision. Client listened to me, booked like this doctor. The spirits kind of described what this doctor was. Got rid of all the cancer. This person can have children. And they didn't take everything out. They were able to preserve her reproduction, because I knew, like, as a black woman, a lot of times, and this happens even now, and this is a very affluent person who's literally a millionaire, okay? So it's not just an economic thing. And they were quick to, we're just going to take all your insides out, That is still happening. There's study after study that there is a difference in the care that a black and brown person gets compared to their European counterparts. There's more death in a black woman giving birth than there is on her white counterpart, So we have to understand that. Or not just women, but birthing parents, so assist female, or assign female at birth. We're all about being inclusive here. But basically, when someone is giving birth, right, there is more mortality. There's more black women, okay, black people dying when they give birth. That's a problem. I have had issues like that myself with certain medical conditions that I've had, that it's silenced. Even before I was technically obese, I was getting discrimination. And then now, I became a bigger person, and then now it's fat phobia on top of the color of my skin. There's a difference. So that's what a lot of people, whenever I would go to the doctor or whatever, I would do the spell work in collaboration with the medical care. Coming from my Haitian background, there's people that have lack of access to medical care, so they'll turn to their healers who actually have herbal knowledges and can heal things. That's different, right? That's different. And that's valid. There's been times that I've done things for people where doctors can't do it, but they did everything. They exasperated every single medical thing, and I'll do a healing on them, and the ailment goes away, and the doctor doesn't know how it went away. But at the same time, at no time did I ever tell this person not to seek medical attention. Even when I've done exorcisms and removed spirits from people, right? Or removed demonic or evil presences from a person, being that I have a nursing background, taking their vitals, making sure they're physically healthy enough to go through the mental and physical thing that a person has to go through when they're removed from spirit. We have to be responsible. Telling someone that, they have negative thoughts and the law of attraction, if you think you're healthy, you're going to be healthy, and that person has genuine human feelings like fear and anger and doubt, and then going on and then turning on that person and saying, well, the reason why you're sick is because you attracted that, you spoke it into existence, is why I have an issue with that whole law of attraction stuff. Because I feel like people have actually watered down what it actually means and made it new agey, where it actually victim blames. People seeking medicine, they're victim blaming. Or if you really were so in touch with your spirits or the universe or whatever, you wouldn't even go to a doctor. I've seen it time and time again. I've seen people condemn people because they are going through anxiety or having a mental health crisis, and then blame that person who's having that mental health crisis. Oh, but you should have done a reading on it. You should have done crystals. Those things are helpful, but you still have to seek medical attention for that. You know what I mean? You cannot invalidate somebody or blame a victim because they need medical intervention. That makes no sense to me. You know what I mean? That makes no sense to me. Like, the physical and the spiritual go together. The physical and the spiritual go together. And that's just the way it is. I stay in my lane. I stay in my lane. It is the equivalent of somebody going to court and being like, I'm not going to even defend myself, seek any legal counseling. I did a candle for a court spell, so the judge is going to find me innocent. Yes, that's what's going to happen. Okay, because you did a spell. Let's make it make sense. Let's make spirituality what it is. It's also based on logic, right? Magic. At least I'm going to talk about voodoo, okay? Santeria is scientific. The reasons why the herbs and certain things are used in the path and the traditions that I practice is because there's scientific basis, right? Spiritualists of the past, okay? Especially the past. A lot of things are getting new agey now. They knew what the medicinal properties were of herbs. I tell people all the time, magical properties are cute and great and wonderful. Learn the medicinal properties of herbs, because you can literally heal yourself. A lot of medicines are made out of herbs, okay? Yes, that is a thing. Okay, that's a thing, guys. That's medicine. That's medicine. Western medicine doesn't know everything. And that's what, yes, I'll take your little prescription, but I'm also going to do my spiritual part of it, okay? That's how I deal with my own illnesses, all right? I try to cure myself. If it doesn't work, then I'll seek medical attention. I do not sit here dying. If my herbs cannot cure me, I'm going to go to the doctor. I made a video recently that I wasn't feeling good, and I had maybe it's Mercury retrograde or the planets or whatever. And I'm like, no, it's not spiritual. I said, I don't physically feel well. I'm exhausted. It was because, and I didn't want to say it in the video, now I'm better. I had gotten a cold, and I'm asthmatic. I haven't had asthma issues in a while. So I was having like wheezing. I had to treat myself with asthma treatment, and I was exhausted. Anybody who has asthma, like, I have the machine here, so I was giving myself oxygen, blah, 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 blah. It accelerates your heart rate. It makes you feel anxious. And I wasn't sleeping well because of all the coughing at night and just working a lot. So I was like, I just need to take that weekend off. So that's what happened. I did the medical part of it. I also did a healing ritual, a spiritual ritual, went to my spiritual health. And as sick as I was, I got better quicker. Like, it cut down my sickness. And I believe it wasn't just the medicine. It was also because I went to my spirits. They enhanced the properties of the medicine. They did whatever they had to do in the spiritual realm and healed whatever stress, whatever it was that was causing my illness. And the medicine worked together with the spirits, alongside the spirits, to cause a healing so I can get back to what I love doing, which is helping you guys. And it's really sad that sometimes I even feel like I can't talk about health stuff because maybe somebody's going to look at me like, oh my goodness, you're not really spiritual, when I am. But I'm also logical and know that there is a place for medicine. Despite the tumultuous history, yes, I'm going to vet a doctor more. Yes, I'm going to do more research. And yes, I'm not going to trust everything you say. I'm all about second opinions. Okay, that's your opinion. I'm going to get a couple of other doctors' opinions. And then I'm going to go to my spirits and see what guidance they give me to see what course of treatment. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't completely take medicine out the way. I don't completely stop going to the doctor. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't do all of that. When I went on this whole health journey, I went through the spirits, but I also took, medical advice. You know what I mean? And together, it has put me on the right path. When I was dealing with my ED, I went to my spirits and did it on did the spiritual work. But I also had gone to therapy for it and gotten that type of treatment. And I'm just tired of people who actually have, schizophrenia, who are bipolar, who may have anxiety, who may suffer from depression, being made to feel bad because they have certain ailments, or they're asthmatic, or they're struggling with EDs, or whatever it is, and making them feel less than because they sought the help of a doctor or a therapist or someone who's actually licensed in this. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? I've had to tell people sometimes, no, your child is not, yes, your child's spiritual, but this is a medical emergency. They're having a mental health crisis and they could do physical harm. I've actually been like, look, your child is suicidal. Like, and they won't believe me. And they're like, oh my goodness, my child actually tried to attempt after our reading. And then they'll go get the medical help. But had they never saw me, they would have gone to somebody else, because they went to somebody else. That person went to somebody else. Oh, it's his crown chakra and their throat chakra. And if you just, level their chakras. Are you freaking kidding me? This child is going through a mental health crisis, okay? We took care of the spirits that were tormenting this child, that was enhancing this child's anxiety and mental health issues, but they were mental health issues we had to recognize. You'll have people that have children on the spectrum that refuse to get their child diagnosed because they're like, no, this child is just a rainbow child and crystal child. And I'm not saying those things don't exist or whatever. You can believe what you want, but when you have a child who's autistic, it is important for that child to be seen, to have the diagnosis. That way, when they're going to school, they can have an IEP, and the teachers and their educators, or even if you're homeschooling this child, they can help them to be successful in the future. There's a certain way that, depending on the spectrum that your child falls on, right, that they have to kind of cater or adapt or make certain changes so that that child can receive an education. You know what I'm saying? That's valid, guys. That's valid. So it really annoys when people are like, oh, you have an autistic son because he walks between the worlds and da 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 da, and trying to make it seem like, it's this higher purpose why he's like that. And I don't like that. I feel like that's ableism. I feel like condemning someone for mental illness and saying they don't believe enough in their crystals or whatever, or their mantras or whatever, is irresponsible. I have a client, we still talk today. I'm not going to say who it is or whatever. And she was really, really sick. and she took care of the medical end. I remember one time, like, I read her in like a hospital setting, and I didn't care. Like, I did that. I prayed for her. I lit candles. But that person still went to the doctor. Does that make sense? I never told this person, just don't believe in doctors. I never said that. You don't make a person feel bad because they're seeking medical help. You can work together. Spirituality and the medical field can go together. In other parts of the world, outside of Western culture, Eastern medicines, and other parts of the world, medicine and spirituality work together because it's about the mind, body, and soul. It doesn't have to be one or the other, guys. Do your due diligence. Recognize that to some communities there is an unfair disadvantage, so we might have to work harder to advocate for our brown, black, and indigenous bodies and people of color. People within the transgender community, the LGBTQIA plus community also have medical disadvantages because of prejudices that doctors have. They were trying to do that with our last administration, where they were trying to really limit healthcare for transgendered individuals. Okay, so there is a disparity there, and I recognize that. And that's why a lot of people within marginalized communities sometimes turn to the spirits. But I lost two clients. I lost two clients during this pandemic. Clients that I've had for years, because I told them, you sound sick, please go get medical attention. And they listened. One was her actual church pastor. We're going to do this whole thing and heal you. No, I'm healed. I'm like, you're still coughing. Person died in 72 hours. And most likely from COVID. Okay. Another person, no, this, that, and the other. I'm fine. Yada, yada, yada. My crystals and everything. I'm like, you sound like you have COVID. They passed away because they went to another reader. They had a falling out with me, and their partner was like, hey, such and such passed away. I wish they would have listened to you. This new agey psychic or whatever said that it was like inner child healings. Like, it's irresponsible. Like, you literally told this person not to seek medical attention, and now they're not here. We have to be responsible. When people are talking about ethics of like, predictions and time frames and all of that, which I don't see it as anything wrong, or third parties, what we should really be talking about, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but what the focus should be are these charlatans that are literally telling people to forego medical treatments and attention and use a crystal. And yes, crystals do have healing properties. I've known people that will go to chemo and they'll have crystals, they'll have their herbs, they'll have their things that coincide and work with the medical part of it. And that's valid. But you need more than just that, if that makes sense. Like, you need to also try the physical things, right? And spirit see your effort, like, this person's trying to get better. But don't blame the person who's sick. Don't blame the person who has mental health issues. Don't tell somebody who has a special needs child, or they're not really special needs, it's because, they're just in touch with the other side and they walk between the worlds, and stop. Now, do some people get misdiagnosed who have psychic abilities? Yes. Because you go to a psychiatrist. Oh yeah, I hear voices. They're going to, they have mental health issues, when it could genuinely just be that you're a medium. You have to learn to know the difference. Yes. And there's gray areas there. But when it comes to like, you're physically sick, your life is in danger, yeah. I have seen things in the cards like, hey, there's something going on with your reproductive stuff, or I'm seeing upcoming health issues. Please, I'll say that too. Please go make an appointment with your doctor. And they'll be like, oh my goodness, my doctor found this, that, and the other, and I wasn't even showing symptoms. That has helped to save so many lives through my spirits. Because I do recognize that there is something to medicine outside of the kind of medicines that I give that are more on the spiritual end of things. Okay. All right, guys. So hopefully this video makes sense. I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section, but I just had to get that out there. You can believe whatever you want. You can believe whatever you want. I've actually taken comments out of my channel with people trying to discourage people from getting immunized, because they're like, because it's going to lower your vibrations or whatever. I got my vaccinations pretty much right when they allowed the public to get it. Like, I got it right within that time, and I've had my vaccination. It has not hindered me. It has not lowered no vibrations. I'm still just as accurate as I ever was. I still have a connection with my spirits, so don't get it twisted. It did not lower anybody's vibration. So again, it's a personal choice, but I'm just saying, I just think for me, that's like, I'm not going to sit here and tell somebody not to have, medical attentions. Now, I've told people when they ask me, like, hey, I said, the cards are showing like some bad reactions. So I would actually research the different types of shots, talk to your doctor and see, what are the ingredients. Because I feel like one of the shots you might have an allergy to. So we have more than one shot. And that way you can make your best choice, because some people can't get all the shots. I have somebody in my family that could only get the Johnson & Johnson one because the other two, with their health issues, it wasn't going to work. They have certain allergens to certain ingredients in the other two vaccines. And also because of other stuff, their body can only take one shot, and the Johnson & Johnson is a one shot instead of a two shot. So, but that person sought medical help. Like, the spirits guided them and they did their thing. That happened to another person. They got a different shot because the other one they were allergic to. So, yeah, readings can work for that. Spirits can guide you in that, and things of that nature. You can work together with that, and there's nothing wrong with that. You go to a doctor, they even tell you what is your religious background, because they want to be culturally and religiously sensitive, right? But I would not tell somebody just don't go to the doctor ever. Like, no, I encourage people to go to the doctor all the time. People that read with me know this. If I see health issues coming up, I'm going to tell you, hey, I'm not a doctor, but something's going on, because I can read something's off with your body. And they'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will give them a diagnosis. So, and they'll be like, yeah, it's in the area you said. That's amazing. But I didn't tell this person, yeah, if you give me this much money, I'm going to heal your ailment. No, like, yes, I've had people like, hey, can you light me a candle, whatever, I'll pray for their health and stuff like that. Yes, but again, I don't tell people not to go to the doctor, all right? All right, much love, much light, much blessings. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys, and until the next video, bye. Oh, if you want to work with me on a one-on-one basis, shamanicartworkpriestess.com, shamanicartworkpriestess.com. The link is in the description box below, and there you can book your private readings and my services. Bye.